Now, I talked about this a bit yesterday, but I think what we're seeing is in real time that the limitations that U.S. policy has placed on Ukraine is actually making them stronger. Now, it's a hard way of making them stronger, but it's like what we're seeing is like the beginning of a superhero origin story. Right? Like think about it like Bruce Wayne, his parents are murdered, and then he becomes the Avenger that is Batman or Spider-Man after his uncle is killed, and then he uses his powers for good or that sort of thing. I think what we're seeing is something like that, where because of the limitations, Ukraine has to rise because they have to rise in order to meet the challenge. Can't use long range strikes? Well, we'll create our own long range missiles. And that's what's happening. New satellite images from Dnipro Osint shows the Western sanction of the Novo-Shakhtinsk oil refinery in ruins with up to 15 or 16 storage tanks either heavily damaged or completely destroyed by fire. This was a few days ago. Here we're seeing all the aftermath, and it's a lot, right? And this is not the only example of these things. Russia's most important gas terminal was only protected by small arms fire. Where's the air defense? Well, I talked about that yesterday. It's over at Putin's house, right? So Russia is losing billions on oil and spending all their resources protecting Putin's palaces. Yeah, Zelensky, barely holding back laughter, commented on the strikes of the Druzhba oil pipeline. We have always supported the friendship between Ukraine and Hungary. Now, the existence of this friendship depends on Hungary's position, right? Hungary's just been a bad actor, and they have complained and complained and complained about how what's happening here is Ukraine's going after their energy security, and yeah, you knew what was going on. Okay. Satellite images show the aftermath of two SBU drone strikes on the Den Exoping logistics hub in Tardistan. The site, key to the Alabuga complex, stores Shahed drones and decoys before deployment. At least 6 hits were recorded on A-class warehouse. Some are patched up already. Now, these things happen over the last few days, but the bigger story is that Ukraine, and I really don't want to use this language that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, because a lot of people have died, and I don't want to be insensitive to that. But if you think of Ukraine as the body, not just the individuals involved, Ukraine is going to be stronger because they have to arm themselves in a meaningful way so that they can go on. And by the way, the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to be for Russia. Like, hear what I had to say. If a year from now the war is still going on, and it's quite possible, quite even probable that a year from now it could still be going on, Russia is going to be pummeled with long-range strikes every day. Like, think about what that's going to be like for Russia. Okay, let's get back to this. So other symptoms here are that Ukraine and Lithuania are focusing on launching joint production, particularly on development of long-range drones. They're all doing this kind of thing now. So that's really, really interesting that they're working at it like they are. The airstrike on Russian command post in Kornevo reportedly killed top officers of the 155th Naval Infantry Brigade. This happened a couple days ago. It was reported, but now we see some evidence of that. Among them, Major General Gudkov, deputy head of Russia's Navy, Colonel Sergei Ilyin, brigade commander, and several other senior staff. This is the second time that command post, like, these guys were involved in Bucha. It's like this group is cursed. Okay, systematic destruction of Russian oil refineries by Ukraine is not only a response to Russian aggression, but also a signal to the Trump administration Ukraine cannot be bent. With Trump's return to power, the U.S. has been seeking a peace deal with Russia. I think that last little line is very fair. I think that's what Trump's trying to do. He's trying to get a peace deal and doesn't really care how it works out as long as it's a peace deal that doesn't crop back up under his watch. I think that's it. But Ukraine is sending a message. Nope, we're not. It's not going to happen that easily. Okay, new Ukrainian Neptune cruise missile. We talked about the Flamingo missile the other day, and I'm going to be doing a whole video just about the Flamingo. New cruise missile with 1,000-kilometer range, suspected to have been used in the March 14th strike on the Tupansky. I'm not saying that right. I know I looked it up, and it's Tupians. Did I say that right? Tupians oil refinery. Ukraine can easily reach Moscow with this new missile. Like, that's really interesting that they're building this. First photograph of the Ukraine's domestically produced long-range cruise missile with a range of 1,000 kilometers. Now, the longer this goes on, where Ukraine is being restricted from using American weapons, or American weapons are being withheld or whatever, and they're growing their own, the less control that Washington will have over them. And I'll show you a little commentary on that, and I think that's right. The new now confirmed to have been used in successful strike on, I just said it, Tuapse. Tuapse? I think that's it. Oil refinery in Russia in March. The missile is a modified version of the R-360, featuring longer and thicker fuselage, over 6 meters long and about 50 centimeters in diameter. The design upgrades allow for more fuel and greater flight distance. Okay, this is the commentary I was talking about. Plan that has led Ukraine to develop its own capabilities to strike Russia that the U.S. can't control. The master strategists in the Trump administration have managed to lose leverage over Moscow, and they are losing leverage over Kyiv. That's right, because once they have their own missiles, if you can't use these, attack them or whatever, and you have to have permission to do that, once you have your own missiles, it's a whole different issue, right? Okay. Last night, the Russians hit Ukraine with 104 aerial missiles or drones and other things. It's mostly drones last night. Russia launched 104, shot down or suppressed 76 of them, 28 drones. Drones hit targets in 15 locations, debris falling in 4 areas. We don't see a whole lot about that, but we do see things like this. The Wall Street Journal talking about Yak-52 crews hunting Russian drones. Yeah, they get in these little aerobatic training planes, because that's what Yak-52 is. Yak-52 is designed as an aerobatic trainer for students to get them to understand how flight works. So the pilot's doing his piloting, somebody sitting in the back actually shooting at Shahed drones. It's pretty amazing, but if necessity is the mother of invention, that's what's going on. 870 Russians off the battlefield day over day, 1 tank, 8 armored fighting vehicles, 48 artillery systems, 79 vehicles, and fuel tanks. If I look at Andrew Perpetua's list for it, it's finally a little worse for the Russians than it is for the Ukrainians day over day. It's not quite 1-to-1, maybe 1.2 or 1.3 to 1, something like that, but it wasn't going the wrong direction for the first time in quite a while. Casualties remain slightly above average. Engagements drop. In the Pokrovsk direction, Russian invaders led 38 assaults. Okay, so 38 assaults, and there were 870 casualties. So that's a high number of assaults to casualty rates for the Pokrovsk region. Last night I saw this. Today we have very, very positive results in Donbass. Good surprises for the Russians. I think Commander-in-Chief of the Army will share all the details later. And there wasn't really a lot of the details that I saw afterwards, but it looks like they got pushed back in a couple of sectors. In the Pokrovsk sector, the Ruzba Brigade uses ground-based robotic systems to deliver food and ammunition to the front and evacuate the wounded. That's a very similar tactic, except ground-based, to what we were doing with the Vampire Drones fundraiser. The idea is get that material up to the front line, the food and whatever else, to those men so they don't have to face drones on the way back and forth in order to gain supplies. Confirmation footage: HUR forces and 3rd Assault Corps have recaptured Novo-Mikhailivka. I practiced that one a lot. Into the Donetsk region. The operation caught Russian forces off guard, costing them around a company of troops and forcing them to pull in reserves. Andrew Perpetua had this comment: the Russians had a breakthrough in the sense that Alada is a tank. It doesn't meet anyone's definition in the form or function, and it doesn't even superficially resemble what is being claimed. So the Russians are claiming that they've broken through in this area or that, and doesn't really look like that's what's going on. What is this piece of paper? Now, if you can't read Cyrillic, it's a piece of paper dropped over the enemy. Here's Preston Stewart saying dropped over Russian positions today, and it reads this: Occupier, you do not understand and will not understand why we do not want to be part of your country. We do not want a dictator like you, at whose will you will soon become manure for our black soil. Perhaps you will become a beautiful sunflower or an ear or of wheat grown on Ukrainian land. Freedom and independence, human life are the main values, but you do not understand that either. I'm sorry that you came to my home with the purpose of killing me and taking what is rightfully mine, not yours. But I will kill you without regret, because I'm defending my independence, my relatives, and my country. Happy Independence Day of Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, that very clearly lays out where Ukrainians are in this fight. Okay, here's just an image of a JDAM airstrike over a building with Russian infantry in Zaporizhia. Su-27 carried out an airstrike on Russian assault groups operating in the industrial zone in Pokrovsk. Ukrainian forces carried out another airstrike on a Russian command post in Soledar, eliminating the commander of a motorized rifle brigade and 5 other officers, according to the deep state. And then this, you probably don't want to try this at home. This gentleman is, he's probably drunk. He found a drone and he's smashing it. That might not be the best plan. Don't try this at home. That could have blown up on him. So near Pokrovsk, a local man, reportedly drunk, managed to disable a Russian fiber optic FPV drone with his bare hands after it was left in an ambush position. Not the most common way to disable a drone, and it's probably not what you want to do. Like, I wouldn't try that at home. I would definitely leave that alone. Okay, Russian soldiers face ever more draconian rules in occupied Ukraine, apparently imposed to crack down on desertions and misconduct by soldiers. Violations now effectively attract a death penalty. Okay, I showed you the number of MIAs just from one unit, and it's really high in Russia, or in Russians in Ukraine. In Russia's Rostov region, 35,000 people are without water due to being allocated towards dousing fires at the local refinery. And how you can set water on fire, as you were seeing in that image on the left-hand side of the screen, I just don't quite understand. Today in Finland, the trial begins for the captain of the oil tanker Eagle S. Remember that? It was dragging an anchor along the bottom of the sea, disrupting the cables. And 2 of its assistants were accused of damaging 5 power and telecommunications cables laid in the Gulf of Finland. In early August, charges were brought against the Georgian citizen, the tanker's captain, sailing under the flag of the Cook Islands, and 2 Indian nationals, the first and second assistants. They were accused of causing damage under aggravating circumstances and of interfering with telecommunications equipment under aggravating circumstances. The maximum penalty for the first charge is 10 years imprisonment, and for the second, 5 years. The prosecution noted that the repair costs are estimated at a minimum of 60 million euros. So, yeah, that's happening. Now, also in Finland, they kicked off large-scale drills with the United States and European forces. The exercises will run until September 12th and are taking place right next to Russia's borders. Meanwhile, Russia's about to be doing the Minsk drills, and so NATO can do them too. Former mayor, last little bit is about POWs. The former mayor of Ukraine's city of Kherson released yesterday in a prisoner swap with the Russians, before and after 3 years in Russian captivity. This is the before of him, as he decided, no, I'm not going to sell out to the Russians, and this is him after. That's 3 years of what Russia does to you. This gentleman is saying this here. He's also a POW returning. I had a blindfold over my face for a day and a half. My hands were bound with tape. The Russians, they treated us like cattle. Now it's a holiday with new meaning since 2022. He's talking about Independence Day, because we have come to understand that what independence really is, that it's won with blood. And then this soldier, who also has returned, said this: Ukrainian soldier Dmytro Mosychuk, after 2 years in Russian captivity, still cannot comprehend how Russians can be so cruel. The brutality I witnessed, I could never have imagined that such things still existed in the 21st century, that such people exist. A person tea all day and then in the evening goes home to his family and his children, and the next day it happens again. For a year, 2, 3, what kind of person must you be? For them, it's normal. They feel no dissidence, no thought that maybe it's wrong or unnecessary. And we heard the same thing in accounts after World War II from what the Nazis were doing, as they were, doing these horrific things to the Jews. And then they would just go home and have dinner with the family and not think anything of it. Okay, last little bit. Dad, this joyful and heartbreaking at the same time to see these reunions of our defenders returned from Russian captivity, and welcome home to these defenders who have been in captivity for a long time. Darth Putin will wrap this up for us. The fact that Ukraine still has an Independence Day, and the 4th year of my 3-day war shows that I am a master strategist. All right, my friends, that's all that I have. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.